Some shocking new statistics on cases of female genital mutilation. The shocking part is they're out of England. A recent analysis by Health Centre in Britain showed nearly 500 people were treated in English hospitals for the effects of female genital mutilation in a single month. Similar numbers were seen in the previous 2 months. The first month that such numbers were compiled was back in September. Now, despite the sky-high number of cases, no one's yet been convicted for the practice, which has been illegal in the UK since 1985. Sun News contributor Simon Kent joins us now from London. Simon, I'm guessing that this very non-British practice and the fact that it is being seen in such high numbers in English hospitals has created quite a bit of chatter.
Well, it has indeed. It's been the splash on a few newspapers here in Fleet Street over the last 24 hours, and with good reason. What an appalling practice this is against often the youngest, the most vulnerable members of our society, and it's being carried out on an almost industrial scale. Look at those figures you just mentioned, and as you point out, this has been going on, they think, for at least 30 years, the whole time that written into law there's a statute that prohibits this sort of thing, yet it's still going on. And we're now getting these figures from right across the country, and you pulled out those specific ones that show this is a widespread
between
cultural
450
practice.
and 500 a month.
Which is extraordinary. And these hospitals should be reporting this. If you present in a casualty ward in any hospital in Britain with a gunshot wound, well, the hospital has to go and inform the police. So why aren't these hospitals going to the police and informing them of this grotesque form of assault against young female members of the community? It's just extraordinary that this has been going on for so long, not being noticed, and they still haven't had one successful prosecution in this country against someone who's carried this out.
We know that this is tightly related to both religious and ethnic minority groups in Britain. One of the epicenters of this is Birmingham. That tends to be an area with a high degree of, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pakistani Muslim immigrants. Is that what's driving this, or is this a new fad in England and among Old English stock that I've never heard of before, Simon? Is that part being talked about?
No, it's not, because you're absolutely right. It's a strong cultural practice in parts of India, northern India. What used to be northern India is now Pakistan. Look at Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, across Central Africa. It's widespread, and also in parts of Asia. And I suppose when you throw your whole society in the multicultural basket and say, well, any practices, everything's okay, it's moral equivalency, we just don't point these sorts of things out, and we let communities get on and do what they've always done. But someone at some stage has got to say no.
Isn't that what happened with Rotherham, where there was essentially grooming and sex slavery going on, and people wanted to turn a blind eye to cultural practices, and you ended up with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of victims over years because nobody would say anything. And here you have it again. It comes from a specific minority group, and everyone is being too politically correct, too scared of being called racist or a bigot to say, hold on a minute, this is not how we do things in Britain.
Well, that's the magic word, isn't it, Brian? Racist. You cry racist and point at someone and say, you're a racist, and then they say, shut up. They don't listen to the argument, the merits of the argument, or the intellectual or human weight of what you're saying. You're immediately a racist. So many hospitals have self-censored. They don't speak out. They don't say what they're seeing because they don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be nominating any specific community. And as I said, this is widespread in Africa and in parts of Asia as well as parts of India. It's a cultural practice that has no part in 21st century Britain, none at all.
It's something that even in Africa, I mean, they had a conference in Kenya to try and deal with this, bringing in people from not so much the cities, but the tribal land, saying, hold on, we have to find a way to stop this. Meanwhile, the numbers are going up in Britain, and it doesn't appear that anybody wants to step forward and say, call me a racist if you want, but this is an abhorrent practice, and if you stand up for it, you're the racist because you are accepting you are accepting the bigotry, soft bigotry of low expectations.
And you've nailed it right there. And no one is speaking up. I mentioned before there is a court case going on here in Britain right now. The first time someone has actually been dragged before a court and being made to answer. And it's being argued earnestly by very, very earnest law lords and people who know about these sorts of things. But it's being dragged out of the shadows for the first time. And that's how it's ending up on the front pages of newspapers. And this is a good thing. You shine a cleansing spotlight onto these sorts of practices, bring them into the open, and then you stop people being called racist. They're not racist, they're saving the lives of young girls, because tragically young girls can die when this sort of thing is carried out in a backyard shed or in a backyard or in a shop or something like that. This practice will only stop when more people know about it. And you won't be surprised to know the UN 10 years ago said stop it, and of course everyone ignores the UN.
All right, let me ask you this before we run out of time. Will this lead to more prosecutions, or do you think that this will lead to, you said, this being done in backyard sheds, that the National Health Service will jump in and say, well, we've got to do it in hospitals now to protect the young girls? I'm worried that that's the way Britain might go.
No, it can't possibly, because this law has been on the statute books for 30 years now. It is an illegal practice. It cannot be sanctioned. It cannot go under the public health. Goodness me, you put that on the NHS. Give me a break. No, it is against the law, and hospitals now, once they get this precedent case through the courts, I guess they're going to get a conviction. I don't know. But if they do, the precedent is set, and then hospitals can step out of the shadows and people can stop crying racist for a change.
All right, Simon, thanks so much for joining us, bringing us up to date on this.